Hello there and welcome back to the Net Report. Chris here, and today I'm here to talk about quite possibly the biggest winner of the offseason in the OKC Thunder, and how with the few moves they have made this offseason, they're looking like a scary contender headed into the 2024 to 2025 season, and dare I say, they may even be the favorites headed into next season in a loaded Western Conference. The OKC Thunder are coming off a successful season where they took a massive leap forward with this young core. They went from a play-in team who finished with a record of 40-42 in the 2022 to 2023 season to a team that finished 55-27 in the 2023 to 2024 season, securing the number 1 seed in a very competitive Western Conference. And with the Thunder being such a young team, there were a few flaws within this team that were exposed in the playoffs. One of the major ones being having to start Josh Giddey, specifically at that 2-guard spot. Josh Giddey was coming off a down season compared to the last few years, where he was honestly just flat out exposed throughout the playoffs, and one of the weak links for an otherwise strong OKC team. He wasn't really able to do much offensively. He was constantly being left open from 3-point land and really unable to space the floor and make the defense pay for leaving him open, leaving the defense to double team guys like Gilgeous-alexander. You could see throughout each playoff series and playoff game, his minutes would decrease, and they eventually even opted to bench him, starting Isaiah Joe in place for him for the last few games of the Mavericks series. It seemed pretty obvious after the playoffs that it would be best for both parties if the Thunder were able to move on from Josh Giddey, and they ended up trading him for quite possibly the best 2-guard to fit this lineup in Alex Caruso. It was a straight up trade with the Bulls, Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso, which is still insane to think that OKC was able to pull this trade off without having to attach any draft picks to this deal. And with this, they were able to pair Alex Caruso, one of the best 3-and-D guards in the game, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all for Josh Giddey, who they were already looking to move on from. Alex Caruso will of course be able to help stretch the floor, shooting above 40% from 3 last season. He's an all defensive caliber guard, and he feels like just the perfect fit next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that backcourt. Caruso is also on a very cheap contract, making less than $10 million this season, and will provide veteran leadership for this Thunder team, which is massive for a team trying to contend and make a deep postseason run. Another issue the OKC Thunder ran into against Dallas in the playoffs was rebounding, specifically late game rebounding. It was one of their weaker points of this team last season, so they naturally went into this offseason looking for a center who they could pair with Chet Holmgren to help in the rebounding department. And in free agency, they were able to sign Isaiah Hartenstein, who just had a career year with the New York Knicks. They signed Hartenstein to a massive 3-year, $87 million contract, and he will right away be able to bring a ton of traits you want from a big man to OKC. He's of course a very solid rebounder and should be able to help OKC on the offensive and defensive glass. He's a great screen setter, which should be helpful in the pick and roll with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a great interior presence, which when paired with Chet Holmgren should be scary for anyone trying to score inside. He's a very scrappy player who plays with a ton of hustle, can finish inside. He just does all the little things you want from a big man, and he will for sure be able to help OKC in many areas they needed improvement in last year, specifically in the playoffs. I imagine he would be paired with Chet Holmgren most days in the starting lineup, and he could be an interior presence that allows Chet to be able to play more freely in a sort of free safety role, being able to be a roamer, switch when needed, which should make this OKC defense even more scary than it already was. Chet, of course, already looks like he can be a future defensive player of the year, and with Hartenstein by his side, the sky is the limit for how scary this team can be defensively, especially on the interior. Yes, the contract is massive and maybe a bit of an overpay at 3 years, $87 million, but to be fair to OKC, they did have the money to spend this offseason, and they fill a major need with this signing. The deal also has a team option on the 3rd year, so if they need some sort of cap relief around that 3rd year, when they have to extend guys like Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, they will be able to get out of that contract if needed after only 2 seasons. These 2 signings in Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso just feel like huge moves for this OKC Thunder team that is looking to take that next step and make a deep postseason run. The OKC Thunder also made a few smaller moves that still hold pretty significant value heading into the future. The first being they re-signed 2 of their younger players to long-term contracts in Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. Isaiah Joe to a 4-year, $48 million contract, and Aaron Wiggins to a 5-year, $47 million contract. And this is important for a Thunder team trying to secure their young core and bench for the foreseeable future. Isaiah Joe is of course an absolute sniper who can shoot the lights out, and he's gotten better every single year and can definitely be a part to a future Thunder championship run. Then you have Aaron Wiggins, another guard who has been pretty consistent for them off their bench as a great scorer, and both should be able to fill in nicely if there are any sort of injuries in the regular season to help keep this team afloat. Both re-signed to pretty fair value contracts. Both contracts are very tradable if the right deal comes along or they need some sort of cap relief. And overall, these are just great re-signings for this OKC Thunder team. They also added Nikola Topic in the draft. And while he probably won't make any real difference to this team this year due to his injury, he is still a great draft and stash player who the Thunder got at the number 12 pick of the draft. If the Thunder can develop him like they've developed so many other young players, you could be adding another really talented young player to this young core. This offseason just felt like a huge success for the Thunder, and with these moves, it feels like they can be real finals contenders headed into next season, and they overall just have one of the most complete rosters. You have Gilgeous-alexander, who is one of the best guards in the league. He finished top 3 in MVP voting last season, and he's become truly one of the best players in the league. He can score from just about anywhere, can get to the line with ease, he's a great facilitator, and has proven to be a great leader and the engine that runs this team. You pair him with Alex Caruso, like we mentioned earlier, one of the best 3-and-D guards in the league, and the fit is just immaculate in that backcourt. Then you have Jalen Williams at the wing, who is just a do-it-all type of forward who can do a little bit of everything. He can score, rebound, play make a little, and he's one of the more underrated pieces in this OKC core that nobody really talks about. You of course have that scary duo in the front court like we mentioned earlier in Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. Defensively, that duo can just be a nightmare. Chet being able to roam feels like a scary sight for defenses. With both of them, you have the ability to have multiple lineups run come playoff time, depending on matchups. Both should be absolutely fun to watch, and it will be interesting to see how they operate offensively, especially with Shea in the pick and roll. Maybe we see more offensive opportunities open up for Chet Holmgren. It feels like the sky is the limit for this starting lineup. And on top of that, OKC has an incredible bench. They have Lu Dort, another 3-and-D guard/wing, who has been a mainstay for this Thunder team over the last few years. He's been a quality starter, and I could see him still getting the occasional start given OKC has a ton of lineup flexibility options. But even off the bench, Lu Dort is able to give you great defense while being a pretty decent scorer. He's able to stretch the floor. He feels like a luxury to have off this bench. You have other guards like Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, whom both can be offensive spark plugs off the bench. Isaiah Joe more so as a sharpshooter, and Aaron Wiggins as more of an overall scorer. You still have other bigs off the bench like Jalen Williams, who can provide you decent minutes and are still pretty young. You have Cason Wallace, another defensive guard who looks like he has a ton of promise. This bench is just deep, and in a playoff series, sometimes it comes down to whoever has the deeper team, especially if injuries pop up. And this Thunder team seems loaded with depth and feels like one of, if not the best rosters top to bottom in the Western Conference. Overall, this Thunder team has made huge strides this offseason to really improve this roster and make this team a true championship contender. With the additions of Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and the young core they have of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams, this team feels like it has a chance to be special. They are, as of right now, my favorites in the Western Conference to finish as the 1 seed, and I would not be surprised if we see a deep postseason run from them, maybe even a possible finals appearance if all goes right for them. But let me know in the comment section below whether or not you think the Thunder should be the favorites in the West, and if you like the moves they have made this offseason. Let me know as well who you think should be the favorites in the West. If you think it's a team like the Timberwolves, Nuggets, Mavericks, etc., I really can't blame you because the Western Conference is just so deep. As always, if you enjoy this type of content, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel out a ton, and we'll keep you up to date with our newest NBA content. As always, thank you for tuning in, and have a great one.